Hey everybody, this is John for Pioneer Nexus MTG coming at you with your quick guide to Combo Winter 2.0, maybe. So, for a long time, Pioneer was dominated by several combo decks that got banned out of the format a couple years ago. Dimir Inverter, Heliod, Ballista combo, and the Underworld Breach Lotus Field combo, and then there was one other, which I believe was Kethis combo that they also banned just to get all the combos out of the format. Now the format is somewhat recovered. We have some combo decks in the format prior to the printing of the new set in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. That included such decks as Lotus Field combo, Grease Vein combo, and there were a few other combo decks in the format. But Lotus Field was definitely the most definitive, with Mono Green being part ramp, part combo with a way to win. Lost Caverns of Ixalan has introduced a number of new combos to the format, or there was one other one that we'll cover here in a minute. It really hasn't gotten its due that Doomwake put some work in. But the first is Geographical Appraiser, or some people just simply call it Discovery combo. This is kind of a one-card self-contained combo, but you need a bunch of other cards in your deck. You have Geological Appraiser, which is with the fixed cascade mechanic of Discover 3. So basically, when it ETBs Discover 3, flip over non-cards in your deck until you hit a card converted mana value 3 or less. Your entire deck is tilted to the point where you can only hit 3 mana or less off of Geological Appraiser. Then, once you do that, you start hitting Glasspool Mimics and Eldritch Evolutions. You Eldritch Evolution into Trumpeting Carnosaur. Carnosaur flips over 5 or less. You continue to flip over, either hitting more Geological Appraisers, Eldritch Evolutions, or Glasspool Mimics. Eventually getting a bunch of Trumpeting Carnosaurs in play. With your final copy of Eldritch Evolution, you go get Doomscar Titan. Doomscar Titan comes into play, gives everything +1/+0 in haste, kills your opponent, fairly clean win on turn 4. Some cases, turn 3. To facilitate that, you play Creative Outburst and Magma Opus. Both these cards can be pitched to make a treasure. So basically, your ideal play is turn 2, pitch one of these cards for a treasure. Turn 3, Geological Appraiser. Your opponent has no interaction, no counter spells, no thought seizes, no removal spells up. You win the game. Fairly simple, straightforward to execute. A little bit of a one-trick pony in the main deck. Doomwake, with his reworking of the deck, got to the point where he had some number of Torrential Gearhulks in the main. This allows you to kind of have the backup plan of Torrential Gearhulk flashing back a discarded Creative Outburst or Magma Opus, kind of giving you a secondary game plan. The rest of the deck is interaction that gets around the mana costings. Repudiate, Replicate is mainly used for the Repudiate part. This is mainly to stifle triggers off of other Discovery decks. You can also use it to stifle Planeswalker triggers, ETB triggers of other things, etc. Mainly this is primarily for the mirror matches or stifling triggers like Gearhulk's flashback trigger, Discover triggers, etc. The other thing that's built into the deck is one Gulta Stampede Tyrant, which allows you to, if you've drawn your Doomscar Titan, Gulta puts a 12/12 into play, and then you, whenever it ETBs, you are allowed to put a number of creature cards in your hand on the battlefield. You then get Doomscar Titan into play that way, and then still do your haste plan. Alternatively, another thing I've done when playing in this deck in the league was Torrential Gearhulk copying with Glasspool Mimic, just kind of grind out value that way with Magma Opuses and Creative Outbursts, potentially outgrinding your opponent as the kind of one-trick pony of the main combo. Once your opponent knows to expect it, can certainly be a problem. Sideboard, there's a myriad of different options for the sideboard. This one that Doomwake worked on had 4 copies of Thought Distortion for basically the control decks, a bunch of counter spells. Allows you to empty their hand, kind of win that way. 4 Torrential Gearhulk is kind of another kind of win con if your opponent's sitting on removal with Geological Appraiser. 1 Chandra for the control decks. Commence the endgame is a nice grindy card. Mirror Shell Crab is a way you can interact with your opponent having a counter spell that's not really a counter spell. Uses the channel ability. That's pretty much the combo. Now, there are a number of different ways to build it. This This guide is more for an overall how the decks work. I'll do a more in-depth guide eventually on all 4 of these decks that we're covering in this video once the builds get a little bit more hammered out and I have a little bit more practice with it. But this is Geological Appraiser or Discover combo. The stepbrother to that combo is the Quintorius Kand combo. Now this is another thing that utilizes the Discover mechanic, as Wizards hasn't learned that anything that casts free spells is always broken, no matter what you do with it. Quintorius Kand, 5-mana Planeswalker, can create spirits, not really the big deal, although you can play a fair game with the card in that regard. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, Quintorius Kand deals 2 damage to each creature, or to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. Basically, you abuse this with the card's Spark Double, which allows you to create a non-legendary copy of Quintorius Kand, and get multiple copies of this Planeswalker in play. And then each iteration you're flipping over into either Spark Doubles or Clever Impersonators. Preferably Spark Double first, then Clever Impersonator, but Clever Impersonator at least gets the combo going. There's also Mythos of something or other that allows you to have more copies. Some versions go for like 10 copies or 12 copies of this, so they can chain out, as there are some circumstances where your opponent can get above the damage. For instance, a deck like Angels can sometimes gain enough life that you want more copies of the clones. That's certainly one build that goes around. This version is particularly more aimed at just having enough of a combo that most of the time you're going to win the game. Trumpeting Carnosaur is kind of a backup combo to it. Very similar to the other deck, it will cascade you into your win. Trumpeting Carnosaur will discover into either a Quintorius, a Spark Double, or a Clever Impersonator. If it hits a Spark Double or a Clever Impersonator, it allows you to keep going, looking for your Quintorius to win that way. Or you can just put a bunch of Trumpeting Carnosaurs into play, eventually win the game the next turn, because you don't have any way to give them haste. The rest of the deck is Ramp and Interaction. Leyline Binding, you're playing a 4 or 5 color deck. This is one of your best ways to get around, having no early interaction spells like Fatal Push or something. Trumpeting Carnosaur can be a pitch spell, basically a channel effect ability almost. Deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. This allows you to have instant speed interaction. Greater Tanuki is an instant speed, not explorer effect. Basically the same thing as Beanstalk Giants, Fertile Footsteps, but an instant speed. It does not come into play tapped, or comes into play tapped, as opposed to Beanstalk Giant comes into play untapped. Sometimes you can use this to set up a Leyline Binding, for instance, if you're missing just a white Beanstalk on 3, get your plane, still have interaction up. And then Virtue of Persistence is a way to both have a threat in a long game against a more creature-based deck, for instance, Rakdos, while having a little bit of early interaction. The one downside of Locked Wainscorn is the fact that it is sorcery speed in a format that is becoming increasingly more instant speed combos, or needing interaction for instant speed combos. So in some of the builds I've been working on, especially on Explorer, I've been kind of moving away from this, but still a very powerful card. Herd Migration is Lay the Land, gain 3 life with the pitch ability, or the Domain, put 3 5/5s into play. This can be relevant against something like Blue-White Control. Otherwise, it might be better to have more copies of Greater Tanuki than Herd Migration. And then Consign to Oblivion, way to bounce permanents to your opponent's hand. There are a number of hate cards that can stop this card, things like Elish Norn, Lavinia, anything that stops Roiling Vortex. There are a number of things that can disrupt the combo. And then the Oblivion part, not as relevant, but there are some plays where your opponent's sitting on a pile of removal spells, allows you to kind of clear the way, potentially comboing out, especially against a deck like, say, Rakdos or Blue-White Control. Sideboard, a lot of the same cards you saw in the Appraiser combo deck. Bedeck Bedazzle, another instant speed reactive card. You have Replicate, that is a tongue twister. Basically allows you to stifle triggers. Thought Distortion, way to clear the thing against Blue-White Control. Chefette Monitor, more cycling. I think I would prefer more copies of Greater Tanuki. And then you get to play Karuga and all this, so you do have kind of a fair game plan in some matchups. But that is Quintorius Kand combo, very similar to the Discover or Appraiser combo that we just covered. Another combo deck that exists is Amalia combo. Now, Amalia combo is very akin to the old Kitchen Finks combo decks in Modern, or the Heliod Spike Feeder combos in Modern, without obviously access to something like Walking Ballista. This is basically a 2-card infinite combo. Well, 3 cards, but 2 that must be in play. Amalia, whenever you gain life, Amalia explores, then destroy all other creatures if its power is exactly 20, has Ward 3, can be a little bit taxing for your opponent to remove. Wild Growth Walker used to be part of the Explorer decks back in Ixalan, the original Ixalan Standard. Its last real play in the Pioneer format was probably in the Golgari Bolas's Citadel combo decks that would use it to gain a bunch of life to continue to cast cards off the top of their deck with Bolas's Citadel. The one thing with this is whenever a creature you control explores, put a +1/+1 counter on Wild Growth Walker, you gain 3 life. Well, this is a loop once you get it going. When Amalia explores, it triggers Wild Growth Walker, which gains 3 life, which triggers Amalia, and you just have this infinite loop until you get to 20 power, blows up the board, and basically at that point you can swing with a 20-something power creature and your opponent's dead. To also facilitate that, you have life gain in the form of Luminarch Veteran, Prosperous Innkeeper. You also have ways to rebuy your combo with things like Extraction Specialist. Some versions play Tybar. Some other versions play, what is the name of the card? There's just a various, Agatha's Redeem? Yeah. Basically, there's just a bunch of ways to get Amalia back, a bunch of ways to find Amalia, and then, find your Wild Growth Walker, win the game. Backup game plan of the Moon Dancer. Could also play the white creature that whenever you gain life, you gain a bunch of power. Very similar effects, but mainly your main thing is Amalia Wild Growth Walker, and then having either Prosperous Innkeeper or Luminarch Veteran. Basically any Soul Sisters-esque effect whenever an ETB creature gains some life. Then you have ways to protect your creatures, facilitate. Collected Company and Court of Calling kind of tie it all together. In order to not need the combat step, you also have an additional piece potentially in Dina Soul Steeper. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So basically, if you have this infinite loop going, or you have a loop going, say, Luminarch Veteran, Prosperous Innkeeper, Amalia, then you can keep casting creatures, draining your opponent out that way, not having to enter the combat step, exposing yourself to, say, something like the Wandering Emperor, or having to untap with Amalia first. Sometimes you can just kind of chain this combo off, kill your opponent that way. The sideboard can be a myriad of different cards. One card you are seeing popping up more and more of these lists is Get Lost, because, like I said, this format has now a bunch of instant speed combos that can just kill you if you ever tap out, so sometimes you need a little bit of interaction in your main deck. For the Appraiser combo, the Quintorius combo, and now this combo that we're talking about here. There's one other combo that's not new to the format per se, but really doesn't get the press it deserves, and that is Vannifar combo. Now, Vannifar combo has been around for a little bit. The problem in Pioneer has been for a period of time, it was kind of difficult to get the necessary combo to win the game. You could untap Vannifar a lot, get a lot of value off of it, but until the printing really of Emendane's Recruiter, it was kind of hard to transition this into a win. Basically, the win state is play Prime Speaker Vannifar, have an elf in play, win the game if you untap with Vannifar. So what you do is you sack the elf, go get Corridor Monitor untaps Prime Speaker Vannifar. You then get Extraction Specialist by sacrificing Corridor Monitor, get back Corridor Monitor, untapping Vannifar. You get all of your copies of Extraction Specialist into play, continuing to sack the Corridor Monitor, and then you eventually get all your Glasspool Mimics into play, copying Extraction Specialist, continuing to rebuy Corridor Monitor. Then the final card, you get an Emendane's Recruiter, give her everything haste, smash. So, somewhat similar to the Geological Appraiser combo in terms of what it's executing. The difference is you get to actually play an actual Magic deck instead of very specific cards that go with the deck. The rest of the deck is pretty much ways to set up your combo. Rona, while it doesn't have its own combo in the deck, does allow you to dig for your missing pieces. This version is an 80 card variant. It kind of takes some of the Rona combo decks elements. You have Bring to Light for Valky. You have Bring to Light for your Prime Speaker Vannifar. You have Hunter's Redemption as a way to, with the second mode, to find your missing combo pieces. And then you also have a little card from Wilds of Eldraine called Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which kind of tore up Modern a little bit in both the Yawgmoth deck, which is a combo somewhat similar to this, and the Hardened Scales deck in that format. It allows you to take a creature card out of your graveyard, and then any creature with a +1/+1 ability gets the abilities. This basically turns any of your creatures with a +1/+1 counter into a Prime Speaker Vannifar, or into Arona, etc. So there's some important activated abilities, and then Tyvar kind of tying it all together. That is the final combo deck that we will cover. There's a few others that I have not covered on the channel, but we'll do a little bit more in depth. That includes Bard class combo, and not a combo deck, but Simic Merfolk has been making a comeback because it's Shana's Tidebinder. So Pioneer's definitely gotten shook up. Mono Green's really on the decline because of all these combo decks right now. Phoenix has kind of risen to the top as one of the better interactive decks because of how efficient its interaction is, while having a combo finish itself in the form of iteration into Temporal Trespass with a bunch of Phoenixes, or with either Ledger Shredders or Thing in the Ices. So the format is definitely testing the interactive decks now. Blue-Eye Control, Rakdos, Izzet Phoenix all have their hands full, in addition to Boros Convoke getting some new toys. Rakdos Vampires getting some new toys. So while the Wilds of Eldraine did not particularly shake up the Pioneer format, Lost Caverns of Ixalan certainly has. So whether we'll be joining Combo Winter 2.0, or if this will actually be a more balanced format where we can have, possible turn 3, turn 4 combo decks, existing alongside interactive fair decks, remains to be seen. But that is your combo deck guide to Combo Winter 2.0. If you like Pioneer content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hope to see you for our next video.